July 2, 1937. The world was quiet, except for a faint, crackling voice echoing through a ship's radio. "We must be on you, but cannot see you. Gas is running low. We are flying at 1,000 feet." Far above the endless stretch of the Pacific, a silver-bodied aircraft sliced through humid air, low and uncertain. Below her, nothing but ocean. Around her, only silence. In that cockpit sat one of the most iconic figures in American history, Amelia Earhart, and beside her, the seasoned navigator Fred Noonan. They were supposed to be nearing Howland Island, a strip of land so small it could vanish beneath a single cloud. But they couldn't see it, couldn't find it, couldn't reach anyone, and they were nearly out of fuel. No one knew it then, but that transmission would be the last anyone would hear from Amelia Earhart. It was supposed to be a routine landing. Instead, the world lost them. Amelia's last confirmed transmission crackled over the radio waves. "We are on the line 157-337. We are running north and south." Then silence. No mayday, no crash site, no wreckage. The most famous female pilot in history had vanished without a trace. But behind the headlines and the mystery lies a deeper story. One of ambition, risk, government secrecy, and the lingering echo of footsteps lost in the sky. This is the story of Amelia Earhart's disappearance. A month earlier, Earhart's voice was full of resolve and confidence. She wasn't just trying to break a record, she was trying to make history. The mission: become the first woman to circumnavigate the globe by air, following a course near the equator. A dangerous route, longer than any flown before, crossing some of the most desolate parts of the planet. The final stretch of the journey would be the most treacherous. A 4,000-kilometer jump across the Pacific from Lae, New Guinea, to the minuscule dot called Howland Island. But it wasn't just bravery that fueled this mission, it was obsession. Earhart had become an icon, a symbol of daring, of defiance. To the public, she was a pioneer. To the government, a publicity gem. And to herself, perhaps, a woman chasing something deeper than legacy. Something close to immortality. Amelia Earhart was never meant to be ordinary. Born in Atchison, Kansas in 1897, she was drawn to adventure from a young age. Climbing trees, shooting rats with a rifle, collecting insects, and defying the expectations of what girls were supposed to do. Her fascination with aviation came later. In 1920, after a 10-minute plane ride at a fairground in California, Amelia knew her future was above the clouds. "As soon as we left the ground," she later wrote, "I knew I had to fly." By 1928, she had become the first woman to fly across the Atlantic as a passenger. In 1932, she crossed it solo, becoming only the second person in history after Charles Lindbergh to do so. The world watched in awe as Amelia shattered record after record, dressed in her trademark leather jacket and flying cap, speaking in clipped, humble tones that masked a fierce will. She wasn't just a pilot. She was a symbol, a woman charting her own course at a time when women were still told to sit quietly in the backseat. But fame was never enough for Earhart. She wanted something greater. She wanted to fly around the world, not just to prove it could be done, but to inspire others to reach for what seemed impossible. So, in 1937, she set off from Oakland, California, in her twin-engine Lockheed Electra. Her aircraft, the Lockheed Electra 10E, had been modified beyond recognition. Passenger seats were ripped out to make space for extra fuel tanks. Anything not essential was discarded: clothes, comforts, even insulation. She and Noonan were flying inside a fuel-drenched tin can, roaring with engine noise so loud they had to communicate by writing notes. Her quote to her husband was chilling in hindsight: "Extra clothes and food would have been extra weight and extra worry." And so, Earhart turned her plane into a flying bomb for a shot at history. But the numbers were cruel. At full capacity, the Electra's maximum range, around 7,000 miles, was only just enough to reach Howland Island, and that was assuming perfect conditions. But nature doesn't deal in perfection, and the Pacific is no place for mistakes. By June, she and Fred Noonan had crossed the Americas, Africa, India, and Southeast Asia. They had logged over 22,000 miles. Only 7,000 miles remained. The next stop was tiny Howland Island, a crucial midpoint in the Pacific. Howland Island was no more than a sliver of sand and scrub, 2 kilometers long, barely a kilometer wide. The U.S. had claimed it under an obscure 19th century law for extracting bird droppings, guano, but by 1937, it was a near-empty outpost. Thanks to Earhart's influence in high places, the U.S. had recently carved out a primitive airstrip on the island. It wasn't much, but it was enough. A runway in the middle of nowhere, waiting for one plane to find it. And that was the problem. How do you find a splinter of land in a sea bigger than the moon? Well, Earhart wasn't flying blind. Beside her sat Fred Noonan, a navigator renowned for his work on Pan Am's trans-Pacific routes. His tools were old school: a sextant, an almanac, a mind sharp enough to read the stars. Their plan? Dead reckoning, using compass heading, airspeed, and estimated wind to chart a path. They'd aim to pass either slightly north or south of Howland, and once they reached the calculated time, they turned to search up or down the line of position. But in the early hours of their flight, they'd missed a crucial message. La radioed them with a warning. The headwinds were far stronger than expected. The message was never acknowledged. Their other hope? Radio. But even that would betray them. The USCGC Itasca, a cutter stationed near Howland, was prepared to guide Earhart in. The ship sent constant Morse signals, repeating the letter A, for Earhart to triangulate with a direction-finding loop antenna. But nothing was simple. Earhart had removed her Morse-capable trailing antenna during previous repairs. It was dead weight, she said. Now, her ability to communicate by code was gone. Worse still, her receiving antenna may have been damaged during takeoff, leaving her unable to hear anything. At best, she could transmit. At worst, she was speaking into a void. Miscommunication plagued the operation like a curse. 3 parties, the Electra, the Itasca, and Howland Island, were all operating on different time zones. What Earhart meant as "listen at 7:42" was received as "answer at 6:45." Radios crackled at the wrong times, overlapping or missing each other entirely. And then there was the fatal mistake. Earhart had requested that the Itasca send a Morse signal on 7500. But she meant 750 meters, a wavelength, not 7,500 kilohertz, a frequency. The Itasca complied with her request literally, not knowing the signal would be useless to her loop antenna. Instead of a guiding beacon, she received scattered noise bouncing off the ionosphere. A wall of sound with no direction. She was asking for a lifeline made of static. However, all this guidance and hope never came together. On July 2nd, they vanished. The greatest search in naval history was launched. 66 aircraft and 9 ships combed 250,000 square miles of ocean. Nothing. Not a wing. Not a wheel. Not a whisper. And thus began one of the most enduring mysteries of the 20th century. When Amelia Earhart disappeared, the world mourned, and then speculated. The official explanation was simple. She ran out of fuel, crashed into the sea, and sank to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. But for many, that answer felt too convenient, too clean, too quiet, and so theories flourished, some compelling, others outlandish. One theory pointed to a simple navigation error. Fred Noonan, though experienced, was working with primitive celestial charts, relying on brief sun sightings and rough estimates. Cloud cover could have interfered. Their radio, limited by 1930s technology, struggled to connect with the Itasca. Some believe Amelia missed Howland by just a few miles and had nowhere else to go. But then there were stranger claims. In the tense prelude to World War II, rumors began to circulate that Earhart had been captured by the Japanese. Some claimed she crash-landed in the Marshall Islands, a territory under Japanese control at the time. According to these tales, she and Noonan were taken prisoner, possibly suspected of espionage, and held until their deaths. Decades later, U.S. soldiers and islanders told of seeing a white woman in custody on Japanese-occupied islands, some even saying she was executed. Still, the evidence was thin. Photos emerged, blurry and inconclusive, claiming to show Amelia alive in a Japanese camp. Skeptics dismissed them, and yet, the stories persisted. Another theory suggested something darker. that Earhart was on a secret mission for the US government. Some believe her round-the-world flight was a cover for aerial reconnaissance over Japanese territory. According to this theory, her capture or deliberate disappearance was the result of a classified intelligence operation gone wrong. The US government, however, denied any such involvement. Files were sealed, records were redacted, and silence, once again, descended over the trail. But it wasn't just whispers and rumors. Real searches continued. From deep-sea scans to island excavations, adventurers and scientists chased the shadow of the lost aviator. And eventually, they began to find something. In the decades that followed Amelia Earhart's vanishing, the trail grew colder, but never silent. Search teams came and went. Debris fields were swept. Ocean beds were scanned. And still no definitive wreckage. No black box. No remains. Just speculation. Just absence. But a new kind of search began, one not fueled by governments or military strategy, but by civilians, adventurers, scientists, obsessives. One of the most persistent voices in the modern era has been the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, TIRE. Their theory? That Amelia and Fred Noonan didn't crash into the sea, and they weren't captured. They survived. They believe Earhart's plane, low on fuel and disoriented, landed on a flat reef surrounding Gardner Island, now known as Nikumaroro, part of the Phoenix Islands in the Republic of Kiribati. And the evidence? Sparse, but strange. In 1940, British colonial officers discovered a partial human skeleton on the island. Alongside it, part of a woman's shoe, a box thought to hold a sextant, and remnants of a campfire. The bones were sent to Fiji for analysis, then lost. Before that, a doctor had noted the remains were of a male, but later forensic analysis of the original measurements suggested the bones could very likely belong to a woman of Earhart's height and ancestry. TIRE returned again and again. In the coral and underbrush, they found broken pieces of mirror, fragments of glass bottles from the 1930s, and a pocket knife identical to the kind issued with Amelia's plane. A tantalizing find came in the form of a freckle cream jar. Amelia had freckles and was known to use such a product. Then there were the radio signals. After her disappearance, dozens of amateur radio operators around the world claimed to hear distress calls. Messages believed to be from Earhart herself. Static-filled pleas like, "We are on a reef southeast of Howland Island. We are injured. Send help." Some were dismissed as hoaxes. Others, matched to radio propagation patterns and atmospheric conditions, suggest they might have been real. If so, they could only have come from land, which means she survived the crash. But if she did, why did no one find her? Nikumaroro is remote, harsh, with little fresh water. The rising tides could have swept the plane into the ocean before rescuers arrived. And the reef, once firm, becomes unlendable with even mild weather changes. The window to find her may have been just days. By the time the Navy searched the island, they found nothing. No one. But the island has secrets. In recent years, sniffer dogs trained to detect human remains were brought to Nikumaroro. They signaled at a particular tree near a possible old campfire. Soil samples were taken and analyzed in the US. The result? Traces consistent with human decomposition. But without a body, still no confirmation. The truth is, Amelia Earhart may have died on a lonely reef, surrounded by silence and salt, waiting for a rescue that never came. Or she may have drowned in deep Pacific waters, far from any landfall. Or she may have lived long after, in captivity, her name erased by fear, her story lost to war. All we know is what remains behind: an empty sky, a lost signal, and a plane that vanished without a trace. But it's what didn't vanish that defines Amelia Earhart's legacy. She became more than a pilot. She became a symbol of boldness in an era when women weren't expected to be bold. A symbol of risk in a world that demanded safety. A symbol of what it means to step beyond the maps, into the void, and dare to draw new ones. In the decades since her disappearance, Amelia has been immortalized in books, documentaries, songs, and statues. Schools and airports bear her name. Her face has graced postage stamps, and her words are still quoted. Courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace. But beyond the tributes and bronze plaques lies something deeper. A wound, because Amelia Earhart didn't just disappear. She disappeared from us. From the pages of history that demand neat endings. From the kind of stories that comfort us with resolution. She reminds us that not everything fits into a file folder. That not every mystery bows to answers. And perhaps that's why we keep searching. We search because we hope. We hope because we need to believe in meaning. And Amelia Earhart, the woman who flew into the sky and never came back, represents a question that never stops echoing. Where did she go? And why does it haunt us still? She set out to fly around the world. And somehow, she flew straight into legend. Amelia Earhart's final hours remain lost to time, buried beneath waves, in the silence of classified files, or on the breath of those who say they saw her. Whether she crashed, starved, was captured, or quietly perished under a foreign sky, the truth has always been just beyond reach. Maybe that's why her story still haunts us, because Amelia Earhart didn't just disappear. She became a ghost the world refuses to forget. And sometimes the most chilling mysteries are the ones that never find an ending. This is Trace of Evil, and some stories never rest. Like, comment, and subscribe for more chilling true crime documentaries like this.